Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About Design, and in today's video we get to finally talk about this. This is the Creality Raptor Pro Laser 3D Scanner and the Revopoint MetroX Laser 3D Scanner. So obviously this channel, we're an affiliate for both Creality and Revopoint, and both have agreed to let me do this video. So what we're going to talk about today is a bunch of different topics, give you as much information as I can on using both of these scanners, and hopefully at the end you'll be able to decide which one is right for you. Now, we are an affiliate, so if you want to support the channel and you're looking to buy either of these, I'll put all the information in the description of the video. All right, we need to make a slight correction. Since this video was filmed in June and was reviewed in July by Creality and Revopoint, we've decided to drop our Creality affiliateship. I'm going to put a segment at the end of this video where we talk about why and kind of the reasoning behind it. It is in no way in relationship to the performance or the quality of the scanner, and that has absolutely nothing to do with it. But at the end of the video, if you want to understand why, I'll go ahead and I'll just kind of break that down and we'll talk about it. But for right now, I don't want to take away from the testing and the stuff that we did with these scanners. So let's go ahead and just go into the normal video, and at the end, I'll put a clip in there talking about why we decided to not be an affiliate anymore and what that means going forward in terms of scanner review and things like that. We do have a discount code for Revopoint scanners, and there are deals that happen with both scanners from time to time. So if you're interested in either one, just keep up to date on what the deals are and how you can get the best deal on either of them. So in this video, we're going to cover a few different areas and hopefully break down kind of the pros and cons of each scanner. We'll talk about the specs, we'll talk about the cost, the ease of use, so things like ergonomics, how easy they are to calibrate. We're going to talk about the software, which is kind of a pain point, unfortunately, because over the past week or two, both companies have been updating their software continually. So I have processed the scans today. I'm talking about the most current version, but there's always a good chance that tomorrow there'll be another version of it. We'll talk about time, so how long it takes you to scan something. We'll talk about the output or the quality of the mesh. And at the end, I'll try to do a wrap up or conclusion and give you kind of my last 2 cents on it. So first things first, let's talk about specs. So the Creality Raptor Pro has 3 different scan modes. There are 22 cross laser lines, there are 7 parallel laser lines, and there is an NIR or near infrared structured light mode. Now with each of those, we do have some options for tracking. So laser modes do require marker tracking, but there is a global marker option where you can pre-capture those markers and then it'll sort of speed up tracking in the scan. For small objects, honestly, it doesn't make much of a difference, but larger objects is where it really shines. For the NIR mode, we have 3 different distances that we can set, and we also have color capture and the ability to do feature and texture tracking. So one thing to keep in mind is that the NIR or near infrared structured light is very similar to other scanners in Creality's lineup, the Otter and the Ferret, for example. And they also have the base model Raptor and then the Raptor X. As I understand it, the NIR is slightly different in all of them. And from what I understand, works the best in this one in terms of the Raptors. And in the overall product line from the ones I've used, I found that the Otter happens to be the best. So just keep that in mind, structured light, but it does give you a pretty wide range of object sizes and distances you can be away. Let's also talk about the specs in terms of accuracy, precision, those kinds of things. So when I'm looking at scanners in this segment, I really look to see the range that they're in rather than the actual number. And the claimed accuracy on this is 0.02 millimeters. And when I say I look at the range, when you look at a scanner like the Scan Ferret, the range is going to be quite a bit higher. So you look at like 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters, where something like this, we look at 0.02. And if you're talking about photogrammetry, you're really talking about plus or minus 1 to 2 millimeters. So when you're looking at a scanner, try not to worry so much about that specific number, because in reality, that's kind of like a lab test, an ideal situation, and you're probably not going to hit that in reality, but that's the claim number. They also claim a volumetric accuracy number, which basically means as you scan larger and larger objects, there is an associated change that happens with that accuracy. Now, Creality says that's 0.02 millimeters plus 0.08 times the length of your object in meters. So if you scan something that is 1 meter long, you take that 0.08, you add it to the 0.02. Now, if you scan something that's 2 meters long, then you end up, again, increasing that accuracy number. Now, one thing to keep in mind too is there are differences between the Pro, the Base, and the X. Now, one of the things that they claim with the Pro is the object size can be between 5 millimeters and 1,000 millimeters. Now, that's a pretty big range, and that gives you a lot of flexibility with this, but keep in mind this is not a large scanner. It's not meant to do entire cars or large structures, but it does have the ability to scan larger objects pretty easily. And with that, we also need to talk about the range. So when you're scanning in the parallel line mode, that is the closest range that you need to be in. It's about 150, 160 millimeters away from the object. And then there's obviously a little bit of a range that you can go away from that. When you get to the cross-line mode, you're a bit further away. I think it's 200 to 500 or so. And then for the NIR mode, because you have small, medium, and large object sizes that you can set, you can actually be between 200 and 1,000 millimeters, or 160 and 1,000 millimeters. So basically, you can be pretty far away when you're doing a large object, and that's a really good benefit. Some other things to consider, 24 megapixel color capture on this. So in NIR mode, you can capture color. They do claim that you can use it outside. There are some specs for the lux values, and generally when you think about scanning outside, you're not going to be doing it in the middle of the day. Honestly, here it's ridiculously hot anyway, so I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to. But they do claim that you can use this outside. I haven't personally tested it, but I did take the otter and the ferret outside, and it did hold up to those claims. Another thing to consider with Creality on this is the claimed PC specs are lower than that of the MetroX. I have some theories on why that is, but basically they say about a 10th gen i7 or an M1 for the macOS system. Basically, that's kind of where they put you as the entry point. I have tested this on some older systems and it does work. I will say that with Creality Scan 4, the most recent update, I have been having some issues that I'll talk about when we get into the software, but it does claim to use lower system resources, so keep that in mind, something to consider. Okay, we need to make just a couple corrections. First, the object size is between 5 and 4,000 for the Raptor Pro, not up to 1,000. That's an error I made for the distance that you can be away while scanning. The other thing is the 24 megapixel capture. That's actually 24-bit color capture in the RGB camera. It's not 24 megapixels. So with all that, let's hop back into the original video. Now, there are other things that we can talk about in terms of the specs. I will put the specs in, in the description, or I'll put all the information there. Let's go ahead and move on to the MetroX. So the MetroX comes with 4 scan modes, unlike this one, which has 3. It has parallel line and cross line. It does have less or fewer cross lines, so 14 on this versus 22 on the Raptor. That's not as important as you may think, but it is a number that we want to make sure we get out there. It does have a structured light mode, but this one is 62 line blue structured light, and it is available in a turntable mode as well as a handheld mode. So the turntable mode is that 4th mode. It does come with a Bluetooth enabled 2-axis turntable, which we'll talk about when we talk about what is in the kit. But those are the 4 scan modes. The accuracy is the same, 0.02 millimeters. The volumetric accuracy is 0.025 plus 0.05 times the length in meters. So basically what that means is at a 2-meter object, they're essentially the same number, but obviously as you get further and further away, that gap grows. Again, what I'll say is these are not really intended as large object scanners. So if you're scanning something that is larger than 6 feet, you're picking the wrong scanner. While the NIR large mode on the Raptor Pro can do large objects, I would not pick these scanners if that's the intent that you're looking for. Some other important specs. Unlike the Creality Raptor Pro, you are pretty much fixed at 200 to 400 millimeters away from your object. So that's true for laser modes, and that's true for the full field mode, which is that 62 blue line structured mode. So keep in mind that this is firmly putting itself in that sort of small to medium object size. And the Creality Raptor Pro does give you the ability to scan larger objects and be further away. And I did get that question as to why I didn't use this for our Starion videos. And the main reason is that full field mode doesn't really do a great job at capturing large areas of a vehicle. And part of the reason for that is because there aren't enough features there, so you'd have to do marker tracking, and that at the end of the day, having to put additional markers on just to use a structured light scanner like that. I have other scanners that do a better job on it, so it just made more sense to use the Raptor Pro for that. Some of the other specs that we may be concerned with: no scanning outside. Revopoint does not say that you can scan outside with this. It does do color capture, but only in turntable mode, so that is also something to consider. We also need to think about the fact that the PC specs are higher. So they do want you to have 13th, 14th gen i7. They do really suggest an i9 processor. And again, on the macOS side, you're looking at a newer processor. I think it's M2, M3. More RAM is required, and a graphics card with GPU acceleration, because the RevoScan software does make use of that. So you are required to have a bit more horsepower under the hood of your laptop or desktop or whatever you're using to scan with this. Just a quick mention, if you are using other Creality scanners and you're using the bridge, so basically the Wi-Fi 6 bridge to communicate back to a computer, this is supported in that. I've never really had great luck with it with other scanners, but it is supported here. So if you want to use that as a sort of wireless scanner, you will need some additional accessories to make that happen, but that is possible. So those are the basic specs. Again, I didn't cover everything, but I think I covered enough there. If you want to know more about the specs, I suggest that you dive in and do a little bit of research. But again, at the very core level, 3 scan modes, 4 on the MetroX. So we've got a turntable mode that's enabled. There's some differences for color capture, for the size of the object, for the distance away of the object. But at the core, for the laser scanning portion, they're going to be very similar. Again, slightly different in terms of the number of laser lines, but overall, on that aspect of it, they're very similar. Where they start to differ really comes into the NIR or the full field mode, and some of the other nuanced differences like color capture in handheld mode. So with that out of the way, let's move on to cost. Cost is always a big consideration, especially when buying a 3D scanner. If you can only buy one, you need to find a scanner that fits all sorts of different needs. You have to look long and hard, because most scanners are going to be sort of in a very narrow window of what they can scan and what they can do. So both of these scanners, having both laser scanning abilities as well as the structured light option, they do open up some different areas that you can use them in, but we still need to think about the cost. Let's start with the MetroX first on this one. So there are 2 kits that you can get. The scanner itself is identical, but there is a standard kit and there's an advanced kit that offers up a couple of additional accessories. Now, the price at time of filming, these are on sale for about $850 for the standard kit and a little bit over $1,000 for the advanced kit. Retail is a bit more. I think it's usually around $1,000 for the standard kit and about $1,200 for the advanced kit. Those prices do tend to fluctuate quite a bit, so make sure that you check current prices depending on when you're watching this video. Now, what you get in that kit is really one of the big differentiators between Revopoint and Creality on this area. So in this kit, you obviously get a case, you get the scanner, you get the cables, you get some marker dots. And where it starts to differ is that you get a 2-axis turntable, and you also get a tripod and little holder for the scanner. So that's a big difference. That's something that a lot of people look for in terms of purchasing something at $1,000 to $2,000. What comes with it? What accessories do you get? So again, that's a big plus for even the $850 version, again on sale, that you do get that turntable and you get the tripod with it. Now, the advanced kit comes with some additional markers. Now, these are magnetic 3D markers. There are some pyramids and some different shapes in there. There are also some bars that thread into the dual axis turntable. And they also come with access to Revo Design. So this is essentially a rebranded quick surface light, and it does give you, again, some additional functionality. I'm not sure how long you have access to it. Quick surface light is a yearly fee, so I would assume you get it for a year from the time of purchase, but if you're interested in that, definitely look into that. And again, that's in the advanced kit. Now, when we get into the Creality Raptor Pro, you basically get the box that it comes in, you get the scanner, the cables, marker dots, and that's basically it. And that's generally where people start to see a big difference in between the two. Is the cost is roughly $2,000. It's on sale right now for about $1,900 in the US, but you know, that's a fairly big jump. If you look at the standard kit on sale for, you know, $850 and this one on sale for $1,900, that's a fairly big jump, and you have to look at spending nearly an extra $1,000 for the Raptor Pro. Now, what I will say is both of these scanners do go on sale from time to time. We are an affiliate for both. I don't currently have any discounts for the Creality scanners. I do have a discount code for Revopoint scanners. Sometimes they don't work if they're already on sale, but if they're not on sale, you can make sure that you check out the information in the description, and maybe that will make you lean one way or the other. Now that we've talked a little bit about the cost, let's talk about ease of use. Now, when I look at ease of use, what I'm really talking about is, one, how much of a pain is it to set up? Two, how easy is it to calibrate? And three, what is it like to actually use? All right, so we're not talking about the software aspects, but just the physical object. So they are pretty similar on the cabling side of things. The MetroX has a USB-C cable that has a plastic clip on it. So very easy to just put in, and then you can just press the tab to pull it back out. The Raptor Pro has a USB-C cable, but it does have little thumb screws on the back of it. So it's probably a better or more positive connection. Not something that would generally wear out because there are brass inserts that are in the plastic here. So long term, that's probably going to be a bit more stable. There's probably a chance that that plastic clip could get broken at some point. And if you don't have a clip holding the cable in, there's a good chance that it'll just come out while you're using it. I haven't had any problems so far in the last year or however long I've been using these. While Revopoint has sent me a couple cables with different scanners that I've had, I'm still using the original one that came with the first early beta version of the scanner that I got, and I haven't had any problems with that yet. They don't really see a lot of strain in normal use, but again, I could potentially see that being a failure point. So if I have to judge them on that, I would say that the thumb screws are probably a little bit more secure. In terms of the actual calibration of it, I would say that they're both easy to calibrate. I would say the Revopoint scanner is probably a little bit more cumbersome in that aspect. It has on-screen animations to tell you what to do, and there are, on-screen information about where you currently are, so you know where to move to and angles and so on. But the way that Creality did it was really slick. There is a 3D version of the scanner based on where you're holding it currently, and then there is a 3D version of it where you need to go to. So it's really easy to see on screen where you have to move the scanner to. So I would give a slight edge to Creality on that one. That's not something that you do all the time, but it is something that does have to be done, especially if you're traveling with these. If you take them anywhere and they get jumbled around, then you will probably have to recalibrate a little bit more often. The last point here is going to be essentially ergonomics. So when you're using the scanners, the overall fit and finish and feel, they're both really good. A lot of times you see these reviews and people will complain about like plasticky feel. They're both plastic. I don't really have any problems with the construction of them. But what I will say is that the larger size and the layout of the MetroX to me feels better in hand. Now I'm a fairly big guy, so I think that it probably just fits better in my hand, but there are a few key aspects here. When you're holding the scanner, your hands aren't going to be on the rubber grips, but there are rubber grips on the top, so you can kind of hold it up here if you need to. You can hold it on the bottom if you need to, whereas the Raptor really is just meant to be held in the middle. Another thing to consider is the larger size, basically from front to back where you're holding it, just makes your palm rest on it a bit better. and the angle of the buttons, so they kind of go up and taper like a 45-degree angle, it just matches the angle that your fingers would be at. Whereas the Creality size being a bit smaller, it never really rests against your palm comfortably, and then the buttons are on that same plane, which just is a little bit more awkward. I think if they were on the side or maybe on the top and you know, the grip grew a little bit more, I think that would be better to hold. It's not uncomfortable to hold, it's just a different, you just kind of have to grip it a bit more because it doesn't fit the same in your hand. The other thing I would say is that I really enjoy the fact that the MetroX has rubber bumpers on the end and I can just set it down like that. The Raptor Pro, you have to set down on the side and then you have to roll it to pick it up. And I know I mentioned that in the review video. It might not seem like much of a big deal, but if you have to pause it and set it down, you can't just set it down like this. There's actually no real protection on the end. So you have to roll it and kind of lay it down and then roll it to pick it up. Just an extra step that you have to do. And I think the ability to set the MetroX down like that or on its side if you need to on either side is just, you know, kind of a nice thing. I find it's very easy to set down like that. So in terms of ease of use, I say you could get used to either of them. The MetroX feels a bit better for me in hand. Again, I think that the way that the Raptor was designed, I think it was very intentional for a user to be able to hold it. And again, you can hold it low and kind of grip it with your thumb and so on like that. But I think that if it just grew a little bit, if it got a little bit bigger and these buttons were at an angle, I think that it would probably be just a bit more comfortable for me. All right, so that's ease of use. Next up is software. This is a tough one because some of my big complaints with the Creality software in the past were lack of features for refinement and processing. Creality Scan 4 just came out not long ago, and they did start to add some of those in. So I will give a you know, sort of a nod to Creality for being, you know, starting to introduce those things. However, they took away some functionality, and I think there's still some improvements to be had. It shows that they're making changes and they're making improvements, but I don't think it's quite there yet. So I'm going to talk about each piece of software a little bit and give you a little bit of feedback on that. So Creality Scan, again, Creality Scan 4 just came out not too long ago, last week sometime, and they've made some improvements, but they did a massive change to the UI and user experience. They moved things around, you know, the tab access to the different tools, locations is a bit different, and structurally some things have changed. What I will say is that the software tends to run pretty good. It doesn't feel laggy. It doesn't feel like you're waiting for it to catch up and you have to kind of move slow. You feel like you can move at a natural pace and it's capturing at that natural pace. Now, I may have not mentioned this in the specs, but this captures 660,000 points per second when you're in cross-line laser mode. It captures 420,000 points per second in parallel mode and 3.5 million when you're in NIR mode. I don't know if that is the same between small, medium, and large objects, but those are the claimed numbers. So with that, the number of points coming in is going to be less than the MetroX. This one captures 800,000 points per second on the laser modes and 7 million on full field mode. So it's pulling in more points per second. Because of the GPU acceleration on the MetroX, it tends to be bringing more points in and more frames. The frame rate's a bit higher as well. So that's something to consider. The software tends to run a bit better on lower systems than the MetroX does. Also, I think that Creality has done a really good job with their preview. So they're not giving you all the raw data. They're basically giving you a graphical preview that essentially is little boxes or little squares. And I think that really helps with the speed of the system. It doesn't look too cluttered. You don't see a bunch of noise, and it makes it feel like it runs a bit faster. Also, in the software, you do have the ability to remove a base when you're using laser scan mode. That's something that is not currently available for the MetroX. It's only available in full field mode for whatever reason. So, you know, that is a benefit because that means you're not capturing extra data that you don't need. If you're scanning a small object on a bench like this, you end up capturing a lot of points of just the bench that aren't needed and you need to filter them out. So that's a plus, and that kind of helps keep the actual file size down. I will say that with the update, they have changed it so that when you merge multiple scans together, they are now just aligned inside of the software and they're not combined together. They used to be combined together into one. That takes a little bit of getting used to. I don't know if it's a pro or a con yet, but that is how it works now. Also, you can only have a single mesh in the file, the best I can tell in Creality Scan 4. You used to be able to mesh multiple groupings of point clouds together. So I think that's probably a step in the wrong direction, because with projects that I do, generally I scan several different things that are related to one project, and I may turn those into multiple meshes and I want to export those. Now you have to turn it into a mesh, export the mesh, and then the next set of merged point clouds you need to turn into a mesh, export that, and so on. So I think that's going in the wrong direction there. They do now have the ability to do some mesh processing, which is nice. It's still a bit limited in terms of, using sliders and radio buttons and things like that, but they are starting to add those features. So we now have some additional auto and manual hole filling. We do have the ability to do some smoothing, even though it's, again, just a radio button for, basically low, medium, and high. And we do have the ability to do a remesh to lower the file size and polygon count. So one kind of downside that I have with the Creality software is when you're going from the points to the mesh, you basically have an option to give it the number of triangles, whereas in the MetroX software, you're really looking more at the distance or the size of the triangle. You're not dictating the number of triangles. So I find it a little bit harder to get a final mesh because you have to tell it how many triangles you want in Creality, whereas in the Revopoint software, you're really looking more at basically the overall size. So if you scan something with a point cloud spacing of 0.1 millimeters, that if you want the triangles to be a certain size, you could set it at 0.5 millimeters, or you could set larger and smaller. And I think that just makes a bit more sense to me. In terms of, again, the PC specs, they are lower for the Creality software. And again, overall, I think Creality software works well along a whole sort of range of systems. It really still feels very much to me like it's aimed at more of a one-click solution user, somebody that doesn't want to dive in and do some additional processing. Now, on the Revopoint side, when we're looking at the MetroX, you do have a specific version of RevoScan for the MetroX. So if you've got a Pop or an Inspire or a Mini or a Range or a Morocco, those all work on the same version of RevoScan. This one has its own. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about sticking with an ecosystem. While it is the same sort of look and feel and essentially the same software, it's not the same. You couldn't import a project from a Morocco into that software. You have to open it up in the other version of RevoScan. That being said, they've worked really hard to get GPU sort of computing built into it, and the last version, 5.6.7, I think it was, it's getting better each time. There are a few things I feel are kind of breaking or going backwards. For example, feature tracking works a whole lot better in the Creality ecosystem. This in the MetroX worked great when I first did the beta testing for these, but I feel like it's getting worse in recent versions. So I've scanned the exact same object with the MetroX scanner, and I felt like it's just not working as well as it used to. It's not bad, it still works, but I felt like maybe it's possibly getting to the point where the points are coming in too fast, and that's messing with the feature tracking, but I'm not really sure why. But I have noticed that it seems to be a little bit more compromised than it used to. It drops tracking and you have to go back a little bit. That's not to say that it's on all objects. I've noticed it more on larger objects, like a transmission scan, for example. Initial testing when these things were pre-release worked great. I didn't have any tracking problems, and now I'm starting to see some dropped frames and tracking issues there. But in general, I think that I prefer the MetroX software simply because I have a few more options. I am able to process points as well as process the mesh, so I can do point smoothing and point reduction after the initial capture. And as I mentioned, this is bringing in a lot more points. When we get to the output, I'll talk about that, and the time for scanning, I'll talk about that a little bit. But essentially, there are some objects that I scanned where scanning with the Raptor took more time and ended up with, let's say, 1 million triangles, where this was a bit faster and I ended up with 9 million triangles. So it is dealing with and handling a lot more data than the Creality Scan software. So I think when we see people saying, you know, the Creality one just runs so much better, yes, it does seem to run pretty well, but it is handling fewer points, and that's something we should also consider. This definitely needs a better system. It needs more RAM, it needs a newer processor, a GPU. So if you are going to be looking to this, you do also have to keep in mind an investment in a system that can handle it. That's not to say that you need the newest, most expensive system, but there is definitely a difference in getting away with a 3 or 4 year old laptop or desktop with the Raptor, whereas this, you really need something that's 13th gen, 14th gen, i7, i9 to really make the most out of it. And I do, you know, there are always going to be little pros and cons. Again, there isn't a base removal on the MetroX laser scan mode. I do like their global tracking a bit better because you can save the global marker file and you can use it across multiple scans. You can't do that with Creality. The global marker is baked in with the points. Again, there are more processing options for the MetroX, and you do have the access to Revo Design, which again, rebranded Quick Surface Light. So that is, you know, that is a bonus because it opens up additional processing options for you. There are definitely benefits to the Creality ecosystem. As I mentioned, it's pulling in fewer points. It seems to run pretty well, especially on older systems. Their feature tracking is great. I've always been impressed with Creality's feature tracking from the Ferret and the Otter. They've always seemed to do pretty well. So I think that there is a bonus there over the current iteration of full field feature tracking. I think that tends to be a little bit worse and hanging up. One of those reasons, though, does come to the fact that the Raptor Pro does have the ability to scan larger objects from 1,000 millimeters away, whereas you still need to be 200 to 400 millimeters away using full field mode. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking at feature tracking and you only have access to a little bit of data versus this much data. It definitely does help the algorithm figure out what's going on. So if I had to pick a winner, I still personally prefer the RevoScan software just because of the additional options that I have. Even if I end up using a one-click solution, it does open up a few extra things. I think that Creality is improving, and I think that the jump from the version 3 to version 4, it's definitely showing some improvement, opening up more options for things like selection filters and selecting through or selecting on the surface, adding things like, again, mesh processing. I think they're getting there. I think it just needs a little bit more time. I think some improvements to things like manual alignment for multiple point clouds could be helpful. That's something that is, if you have more than 2 scans, it tends to be a bit cumbersome, whereas MetroX handles that a little bit better. You can align 2, and then it'll combine those, and then you can align a third to those 2, and then so on and so on. So it's just, you know, little things like that. If you do have scans where you need to do some manual processing, I would still lean toward the MetroX and the RevoScan sort of ecosystem for that, you know, if that's an important thing. So now, with all that said, let's go ahead and talk about time. Time is important. If we are going to spend the time to set up and scan something, we want to know how long it takes. Time isn't the only consideration here that we want to talk about, though. The number of frames and in general, the number of points or triangles we get out of that time. So those are all important factors. One of the examples that I did here was the bezel that we scanned for our Starium project. So that was basically a thin cast aluminum piece. I scanned it with the Raptor Pro, and I did see some comments about the quality of the scan. Something to consider, and I mentioned it before, is that a lot of times when I'm scanning stuff, if I'm not trying to reverse engineer it, I don't really have a good reason to spend the time to smooth it and process it and get it looking good, because it's just not needed. You can certainly go through that process, and in the description of the video, I've got some downloads with mesh files from for that bezel, as well as the turbo compressor housing, and I think I also included this triple clamp as well. So with that, I went ahead and I did minimal processing in both softwares. And I also went through and did some additional reprocessing still in the same ecosystem. So Creality Scan 4 and then RevoScan for the MetroX. And then I brought them into Quick Surface and I did some additional processing in Quick Surface. So you'll find with the bezel, there'll be multiple mesh bodies in that same file. You'll see the same thing with the triple clamp. I did sort of the initial semi raw data, and then I did a processing. And what you're gonna find is that in general, the MetroX had a lot more points. And when we look at the time, it captured it quicker. So it's something to consider from a user perspective when you're scanning. It may feel like the MetroX is scanning slower, like it might seem or feel like the system feels laggy. This is going to be a big product of the processor power that you have, the GPU, the RAM that you have access to. Those are all going to play a factor. And again, the versions that keep coming out keep improving it and feeling faster and faster and more reactive. Earlier versions, you kind of had to be very slow when you were scanning. It felt like you could very easily get ahead of the scanner. Now that's not so much the case. Now it doesn't feel like you have to be as slow and intentional with that, especially if you're using global marker. You can kind of go all over the place and not worry about tracking and still capture that data. So with the basic example of the bezel, scanning the bezel with the MetroX, the top side I did in 2 minutes. The bottom side I did in 2 minutes, plus or minus 10 seconds. And they don't publish the number of points in that raw data, but what they do give you is the number of frames. So with the bezel, I had about 7,000, 7,500 frames on the top side with cross-line laser mode. Again, resolution was set as small as I could. On the back side, using parallel line, it was again about 2 minutes and 6,800 frames, somewhere around there. So both were about 7,000 frames, give or take. One thing I will say with both of those is that ended up being a couple million points. So something like 2 million. But remember that the MetroX doesn't have the ability to remove the base. So when I was looking at these points, I did it after fusion and after pulling the base out. So it captured more points than that, but it just ended up, because I had to remove the base, that number dropped. Now with the Raptor Pro, scanning the same object, the top in cross-line laser mode took about 6 minutes. Bottom took about 6 minutes as well. That ended up being roughly 15,000 frames for the top, about 17,000 for the bottom, and roughly ended up being about 1 million points. And again, this has the auto base removal, so that automatically took out the base, which is why I took it out and didn't include it in those. So we're looking at about 3 times the amount to scan and half of the points. So again, that's where I say, like, when you're thinking about how the software is working, how it's performing, why you need a higher spec system for the MetroX, pulling in more data. And I think that's a big thing that I haven't really seen talked about when these scanners have been reviewed back to back. Some other examples, so the turbo compressor housing that you're probably seeing on the screen right now, I didn't factor in the time, but the MetroX, we had about roughly 8,000 frames. For the Raptor Pro, we ended up with about 10,000 frames, so more frames, but it ended up being less triangles at the end of the day. So we captured more frames, but I think it was like 2 million triangles, whereas with the MetroX, it ended up being about 4 million. So fewer frames, less time, but twice as many triangles. Now, that may or may not even be a good thing, right? So if we can get the same data or the same final mesh result out with fewer points, that doesn't necessarily mean that, again, it's a big pro or it's a big con. It's just an important point to note because it does impact the usability. It does impact the software, the RAM requirements, things like that, because we are pulling in more data. Another example is this GS6R triple clamp. So this one I scanned with both scanners on cross-line laser mode on the top. Again, I used the smallest resolution setting just to kind of push it and see what I could get out of it. The bottom on both, I used parallel line mode. And what I found was with the Raptor, we ended up with 1 million triangles at the end. And with the MetroX, I had 9 million. So I didn't time it, but I would say the effort and the amount of time was actually a little bit longer with the MetroX. I felt like I had to scan for a little bit longer with this, but 9 times the number of triangles with, again, just kind of the baseline processing directly in their respective softwares. Now in the supply downloads, again, what I did was I went through and I did some processing. So what I tried to do was take the number of triangles and on the final processed mesh that you'll have, in addition to those higher meshes, but in the final process one, I tried to make them roughly equal in terms of the number of triangles. Now that took fewer steps in the Raptor Pro than it did for, say, like 9 million triangles going down to, let's say, 500,000. I basically did like a 5 or a 10% repolygonization or remesh in Quick Surface to get down to that level. You could certainly do that in Creality Scan, or you could do that in RevoScan, but just something to keep in mind. The number of points that you're getting in with the MetroX definitely seems to be quite a bit higher, especially on laser scan mode. On the NIR versus the full field mode, NIR is 3.5 million points per second, and the full field mode is 7 million points per second. So again, you're bringing in kind of double those numbers. And again, it's directly related to the number of frames per second you can capture as well. Now I know those numbers are points per second, but it is affected by the actual frame rate you're getting. So if you're running at 50 or 60 frames per second in RevoScan, or you're running at 40 frames per second in Creality Scan, that is going to have an impact on the number of frames you're capturing and ultimately the number of points you get. So that's a lot of info. Probably not a super clear victory or winner. And again, like I said, if you have either of these scanners and you're using them just as laser scanners, they are very similar. Obviously a clear difference in the number of points coming in with the MetroX. But when you look at the outputs, especially when you process them, clean them up a little bit, and reduce the mesh count, at the end of the day, your end result is going to be extremely similar. It does mean that you're going to spend maybe a little bit more time with the Raptor. It may take you, 2 to 3 times the amount of physical time to scan the object. The end result, the polygon count will be lower. But again, the detail seems to be very similar. What you'll see with the MetroX is a lot of cases you can scan quicker and bring in more points, more of that raw data. And again, with these examples, I was using very low resolution settings, and I was processing the points at very low settings, so like 0.02, 0.05. And again, it was really intended just to see how much raw data we were bringing in. But again, at the end of the day, the MetroX appears to be pulling in quite a few more points quicker, which just means that you also need to spend a little bit more time processing. So for example, flat base removal, not an option in laser mode right now. So you do need to manually process that out, and you need to think about that a little bit when you're setting up your objects to scan. RevoScan and Creality Scan, again, they're both constantly improving, and there are new releases coming all the time. And again, if I had filmed this a week ago on the older version of Creality Scan, my opinion would have been different. We didn't really have all of the additional processing options that we do now, but they did also kind of change some stuff for the worse, in my opinion, like only having one mesh in a file. To me, I wish that it would work a little bit like the old one did. So at the end of the day, what is the conclusion here? Well, again, we're an affiliate for both. I have to be a little bit political here with what I say. But what I will say is that you have to judge these based on the metrics available. Obviously, specs are pretty close. If you're scanning larger objects, I believe that the Raptor Pro does have an edge there because the NIR mode does have the ability to go small, medium, and large object mode, which means you can get 1,000 millimeters away and scan larger objects like the corner of a bumper on a car or an entire transmission. You will end up losing some accuracy and some resolution because you're scanning farther away. The point distance is going to be farther, so you're not going to capture as much detail. But it is possible. So that is kind of a plus or a pro there. If you are working on a lower spec system, you don't have the money to upgrade your system, spending a little bit more for this scanner might help. But if you look at the $1,000 difference between the standard kit and getting a Raptor Pro, you have to look at whether or not that can also, get you an upgrade on your system, and if that makes the difference there. Another thing you need to look at is accessories. Yes, it's great to have a 2-axis tripod or a 2-axis turntable and the tripod and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to use them, you have to just consider whether or not it's an accessory you need, or you're just getting it because it's included in the price and it seems like a good deal. I will say personally, very rarely do I scan on tripods. I have done several times, and I will say that the 2-axis tripod, I will say that the 2-axis turntable that comes with this kit is much better than some of the ones that come with some of the other RevoPoint scanners. So things like, if you look at the turntable that comes with some of the other scanners, you basically have to just plug it in and it's constantly spinning, and there's a little dial for speed. This one being able to be, basically tied into the system, it has the ability to rotate a set number of degrees and tilt and so on. That is definitely a big bonus if you do turntable scanning. I will say the advanced kit and access to Revo design, as well as the additional magnetic base markers, that to me is a plus. That's something that has definitely saved me from having to put adhesive markers all over things when I can just set those around the object and they work pretty well. In terms of performance, again, number of points coming in, that's a big consideration. How well the software works is a big consideration. And these are things that unfortunately you either have to just take my word for or get access to or play with a scanner on your own. I will say that both of them are constantly improving. MetroX has gotten a lot better in the past couple weeks. So probably a month or so ago, it was working well, but the difference from then to now is a big improvement. Probably the biggest improvement I've seen since the original release of this on Kickstarter. With the Raptor Pro, I don't really have any legacy data of using the original Raptor or the X to compare it to. So I only really have a good indicator on how it worked on the Creality Scan version 3 and the recent release of Creality Scan 4. And I think overall the performance is good. I was pleasantly surprised with how well it worked. And again, at the end of the day, the outputs are very similar, even though the number of triangles or polygons are very different. So again, 9 million versus 1 million. The actual details that you're pulling out are very similar. So again, just on a face value, laser scanner to laser scanner, I think they're pretty good. I think that the difference between NIR, full field, some of the accessories, those are the things that are probably going to make or break the difference between which scanner you end up choosing. Now, if you have any questions on any of this, if you want to see more with both of these scanners, please leave a comment, consider subscribing to the channel. I do have more videos planned with both of these scanners. We're going to talk more about things like optimal settings and how to get a smooth process scan out of both of them. Those will be independent videos. And we do obviously have more projects here to take care of, more on our GPZ series. We need some other projects on this car, some other things that we need to design. So I will be using both of these scanners in future videos. So if you have any questions or comments or things you want me to address, then please let me know. Okay, so if you're still in this video, you're here because you're wondering why we decided not to be a Creality affiliate. There's a lot of different factors to it, so it's not as simple as we just decided to not be one. So I'm going to try to break down the reasoning behind it, what it means to be an affiliate for this channel, and kind of those relationships. So first, it's important to note that we're an affiliate for several different companies. So Plasticity and Quick Surface for software. Also, we are an affiliate for Revopoint, obviously, and we do different videos like the PCBWay videos where those are sponsored, but we're not an affiliate, meaning that there is no commission or percent based on sales. So if you've watched any of the videos on this channel, you know that I'm not a salesman. The channel isn't just me. There's another guy also named Matt that is partner in not only this channel, but learn everything about design.com, our merch store, and basically all the other stuff we do for this learn everything about design brand, but also in the professional stuff we do, making content for Autodesk and for other companies. So with all that, it's important to note that it's not just my time, it's the time of another individual, and we always need to make sure that we balance that, because YouTube as a job, which I wouldn't really consider this a job because we don't really make enough money for it to be a job, takes up a lot of time. Whether you have 1 million subscribers or 1,000 subscribers, you do have to take time in setting up, planning videos, making videos, editing, and all that kind of stuff. We don't do any real social media or kind of expand beyond this ecosystem. We did just start a Patreon where we're going to start putting data sets and things like that, but in general, there's not a whole lot of advertising and stuff that goes into it, but it still does take up a good bit of time. So for example, this video that you just watched was probably 30 plus hours to create, not even including like the editing time. And that was like 200 gigs of B-roll to go through as well. So filming everything live, plus screen captures, plus recording all the data, plus the additional testing that wasn't recorded, all that stuff just adds up and takes time. So when we're doing these kinds of videos, even though we do our best to present the information, we always have to be mindful of time, because on a good month, YouTube advertising revenue is $400 to $500 split between 2 people. So it's not enough to justify it as a job. And then we also have to be mindful of how we balance and manage that relative to other work that we have. All right, so we do, again, produce content for other companies. We develop certifications. We produce data sets and do design contracting work as well. So there are a lot of other things that pay the bills, and then YouTube is kind of extra. It's just extra time. And so when we're looking at being an affiliate for a company, it's not generally a sales pitch. Like, we're not trying to do it to sell more things. It's really about like presenting that information. So when we're an affiliate for, say, Plasticity or Quick Surface, it's because we use those pieces of software and we think they present value. And also we have a direct line to the software developers, to the company. So that is a big benefit, because if you're watching these videos and you leave a comment, you have a problem with the software, whatever the case is, then we can take that directly to those people. So if there's a bug in the software, or if there's new functionality that you want to see, or something works but doesn't work the way you expect it to, we can be a direct line to get that information. And a lot of times those affiliates like Plasticity and Nick developing that, and Quick Surface, and even Revopoint, they all watch the videos, and sometimes they comment and answer questions on them as well. So having those relationships is important. Also keep in mind, like with this channel, as anybody that's commented or emailed me knows, I reply to all of them. So if you've left a comment or you sent me an email asking a question, I do my best to reply to everybody. Now, there are some requests that I can't really help out. So if you're requesting some videos, we've got a huge list of videos. And as I already mentioned, this is not the day job. So getting to a backlog of videos that are requested, plus the stuff that we want to do, like finishing the GPZ series and other projects that I've just got, personal projects that aren't on the videos, those are all things that just take up time. So, having that personal relationship with an affiliate is important. With Revopoint, it's always been really good because I have a direct line to somebody at the company. So if I have a technical issue, if I have to do a web meeting with them and show them what's going on, or have a problem. And this was especially true during the MetroX release, because we were working on beta software that was changing sometimes daily. That's important. Not only the fact that they're interested in getting videos out, but they're also interested in the feedback. Revopoint very specifically likes to understand our point of view, the channel, and then also how people are using it, what they're thinking. They've never coached me on what to say. If there are technical errors in the videos, obviously they'll ask to fix those kinds of things, or like if I say something wrong or if I use a feature wrong, they'll point it out and ask me to change those things. And of course, if we make a mistake, we're happy to fix it and change that. With Creality, the affiliate relationship is a bit different, and they are, at least from my history, they use like third-party companies to manage these affiliate relationships. So I don't have a contact at Creality directly. Even a couple years ago when we first did our affiliate setup, it's always been through somebody else. So that instantly makes like one step away from being able to talk to somebody that's building the scanner or working on the scanner or whatever the case might be. Now, I'm not talking directly to engineers at Revopoint or anything like that, but I could if I needed to. Now with Creality, I could make that happen as well. But again, dealing with these sort of intermediaries, you've got a company that wants to do marketing and advertising, which every company does, and they hire these third parties to deal with that. So they'll have a list of requirements that they want, a number of views on specific features and things like that. So it's not as much like coaching us what to say when we do videos, but there are definitely more stringent requirements, and because it's like dealing with a messenger, it's a bit of a different relationship. So being one removed from the company kind of muddies the water a little bit. And not that any of my contacts have been problematic or bad, but it does change the dynamic between working directly with these companies. And it's in no way a reflection of the products themselves. Now, I mean, I've had several Creality 3D printers. I have a K1 Max still that I need to update the hot end and fix that. I had some problems with it. I think that they provide good quality products for a value. Not perfect. No product is going to be perfect, but they're definitely, they have a market share, and they are more than just 3D scanners, where Revopoint is primarily a 3D scanner company, where Creality is 3D printers and laser engravers and things like that, and these scanners. So they have a bigger sort of general audience and idea around what they want, and because of that, they've got these sort of marketing companies or different companies dealing with those affiliate relationships. So that's one reason why we decided to end the affiliate relationship, which doesn't necessarily mean that we won't still get sent scanners and do videos. It just means that there's no affiliate link to purchase the scanner, which is another kind of problematic thing when you're doing YouTube videos, is that saying that you're an affiliate for something generally means that you're trying to sell it. With Creality being an affiliate for probably 3 years at this point, we've made a total of $500. So it's not about the money. We're not trying to sell Creality scanners or Revopoint scanners or whatever. If you're in the market for it and you're looking for information on how to use it or review, that's kind of where we're trying to fit in. And then if you want to buy it and use our discount codes, affiliate codes, whatever, then it helps out the channel. But it's never starting off as a sales pitch. It's always been trying to provide information that's helpful. So for example, with Revopoint, we have an Inspire, Mini 2, a couple Moroccos, we've got the MetroX, there's probably something else I'm forgetting in there, but that gives us the ability to provide information on how the scanners differ in like a workflow and answer questions about that. So I think that's a unique thing that we can provide. Now, in terms of like the financial benefit of it, we do get a higher percentage on commission for Revopoint. We still don't push it or try to sell it, but we do get a higher commission than we do for Creality. That being said, we have made a little bit more money from Revopoint over the past couple years, but I mean, I'm thinking it's somewhere like $1,500 for 2+ years of being an affiliate. So there's the financial benefit, unless we're actively trying to push and sell these products. Being an affiliate, it's really not in it for that. It's just kind of a nice to have, right? A little extra on top. If somebody's trying to buy something, then it does help. Now, I will say with Revopoint, we do have discount codes as well. And if you use those and not the affiliate link, you still get the discount code. It doesn't help out the channel at all, which is totally fine. If you want to buy it, you know, and you get a good deal on it and you don't want to use our affiliate link, there's no problem with that. But, you know, just kind of with that relationship, again, the intent is not to be a salesperson for these products, but to provide a perspective on them. And so again, with Creality, the financial benefit of actually being an affiliate is not there with the amount of work it takes to produce these. So being labeled as an affiliate is not really, it's not really helping. And honestly, with Revopoint, we could not be an affiliate and be fine as well, because again, $1,500 over the course of a couple years is, it's not enough to justify the time that goes into making the videos from a financial standpoint. And, you know, with YouTube advertising, you know, good month is $400 to $500 split between two people. That's, you know, again, there's not a financial benefit. And I think a lot of people, and I've seen this comment once or twice on the channel where people say, oh, you're just trying to sell products, or, you know, you're just trying to push these things to make money. Well, we don't make any money to speak of with the channel, what we do. You know, we are an affiliate for software companies. Those tend to do pretty well. Plasticity in general is a pretty good affiliate relationship. Quick Surface as well. But like scanner videos and being an affiliate for these scanner companies, there is not a financial benefit where we are as a channel for the number of views and subscribers and stuff we have. It's not worth the 20 or 30 hours spent on making a video for it to make $30 in ads and then maybe a little bit of money off of the affiliate relationship. So I do want to just kind of dispel that myth that trying to sell these products, or, you know, being an affiliate is somehow this super lucrative thing, and it's not. And on that note, with the channel, I mean, I've probably got 150 emails in my inbox right now of just different companies that want to do sponsored videos. Sometimes the videos they would be related to stuff we do on the channel. So for example, I'm not going to name the name of the company, but like we've done a video with PCBWay on the triple clamp for the GPZ project. You can't see it, but it's sitting right there. I had an opportunity to be an affiliate for a US-based rapid prototyping company. And I have used these companies in the past in professional capacities. And the problem is just the price point. And I try to be mindful of that. And I know with things like Quick Surface Lite being $400 a year, I get comments that it's not beneficial for a hobby user to pay that much. From a professional standpoint, it's totally worth it, right? I'm not in the Fusion Creators program, because every time I would do a video, I would have to say that we're a Fusion creator. So I have a commercial license of that. With things like this, we just kind of have to juggle what those affiliate relationships look like and whether or not there's a benefit to partner with a company. And if I try a service out and I don't think that it makes sense from like a financial perspective for the audience that we have, then I turn it down. Now, some affiliates will pay you a flat rate up front and then a percentage, a number based on views or things like that. But at the end of the day, it has to be a product that makes sense, and it has to be something that I would use myself. You know, so PCBWay is an example. Buying a Revopoint or a Creality scanner is an example. Quick Surface Lite specifically, plasticity. You know, I bought a studio license of that. So these are areas where it's important that it's a product that we use and we believe in, and we have a good relationship with the company. There are other products that, you know, a recent example is a treadmill company reached out and they really wanted us to do a video on a treadmill. And I was like, no, it doesn't make sense. Unless we were designing it, it doesn't fit with what we're doing. And, you know, we probably had 5 or 6 emails back and forth. I'm sure that's a great product, but it was like, we need to, you know, you could use it. There's a treadmill that you can use at your desk while you're working. And I was, you can't do precise CAD work while walking on a treadmill. And I was just like, it just doesn't fit. And so those are situations where the company is willing to send you, you know, a $2,000 treadmill to do a video on, and then give you, you know, a certain number of dollars per 1,000 views. But at the core of it, that's a sales pitch, that's a commercial. It's not something that we would do on the channel just to make a little bit of money. It would be great if YouTube was enough to just be my job, but it's nowhere near that. So when we have these affiliate relationships, the point of all this is that it's important that we have a good relationship with the company, and that the product is something that we use and we believe in, and it's a good quality product. I don't want to, if I review something and it's not good, then I don't want to put my name on it and be associated with it. And again, I think it's important with Creality that the products themselves, like the Raptor Pro scanner, does a really good job. I don't have any problems with the product itself. Doing a comparison video, hopefully highlighted pros and cons between the two. But at the end of the day, it's the financial the benefit, the sort of connotation that goes with being an affiliate, and then the relationship with the company. So the communications relationships with these third parties have all been fine. They're, like, I don't have any problems with that, but it's different, right? It's different if I have a problem with plasticity. I can just talk to Nick directly, the guy who designed and developed it and programmed it, and I can have a conversation with him. Same thing with quick surface. I can have a conversation with you know, the guy that designed and developed and owns the company. And being able to have that as an affiliate relationship is important. Having to go through a secondary person to get access to somebody at Creality is really probably the biggest decision that made me decide to cut ties as an affiliate. So what does that really mean going forward? It doesn't mean that we won't still see Creality scanners on the channel or printers. I still have a K1 Max. Once I've fixed it, I'll still use it. But that just kind of means that we won't be branded as an affiliate. And it doesn't really mean anything else than that. Other than if you go to buy it, there won't be an affiliate link for you to use. Just buy it wherever you can, wherever you know, feel like you want to, or a company you want to support, then just buy from them. So if there's another channel, like if you go to Making for Motorsport, David, for example, if he's a Creality affiliate and you want to support him, then use his affiliate link. So there's no problem with that. And I don't have any problem with other channels being affiliates or associated with these different companies. There are definitely some videos or channels that I've watched where, you know, you're in the middle of a video and then it's like sponsored by AG1, you know, Advanced Greens or NordVPN or some sort of first-person shooter video game, and it's completely off topic with what you're doing. And I personally, I don't want to be in that position, even if it is making more money. I don't want to be in a position where we're interrupting this video to, you know, bring you this message from NordVPN or something like that. So that's always the goal here. And again, the channel is not about making money. It would be great if it was making me plenty of money and I could just do this for a job, but it's not there. And kind of the last thing I will say with that is that the channel and the community is steadily growing, which is great. We're always trying to juggle the content we put out. I know we always ask for comments and videos that you want to see. We've got a huge list of videos that have been requested, huge list of projects. The GPZ sitting here, this Starion that, sad to say, just collects more dust than it gets attention. But you know, these are projects that I want to do and document. I also have projects that I want to do that aren't going to be on the channel, and work that pays the bills and all these other things that happen. So If you have reached out and requested a video and you haven't seen it and it's been a while, don't hesitate to email me. I respond to all the emails and all the comments. So if you feel like it slipped through the cracks or something like that, then reach back out. Right now, I've got one that was like a 3D scan jet ski project that recently came up, Iron Man helmet, somebody that was making a center console adapter for a phone, and like all these little projects that come in. And I know people have requested more aero stuff, more CFD stuff, like full car simulation with the flow simulation we did on the duct for the Starion project. So I have all these lists. We're also going to be doing some CAM programming videos here in the near future. I do a lot of that for Autodesk and have done it for years. It just hasn't come up on the channel yet. But I am going to be doing a course on our Learn Everything About Design website where we're going to go, through basically everything from getting started with laser cutting and water jet all the way up to multi-axis. So we'll have that content there. We'll also put some on YouTube. And so if you're looking to get started with programming toolpaths, we'll be covering that as well. So we've got that, we've got simulation, we've got software updates, we've got more planned in plasticity and quick surface for SolidWorks, and just a whole host of things. So there's just not enough time to get to it all is the big problem. And doing videos like this that took the better part of a week really kind of derail things. And again, there's not a lot of benefit for me in the channel. So it's really more about the information. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and this little rant at the end kind of helped understand the reason behind why we made that decision and kind of what that means for the channel. So with the channel in general, as always, if there's anything you want to see, leave a comment or send me an email and I'll add it to the list, and we'll get to it when it makes sense and when we can. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.